Hi everyone. This is the first time I'm doing a video like this, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I really wanted to talk to you, so here I am. If you're one of my readers, you know that I haven't had a new romance novel out in far too long. I've been dealing with a lot of life challenges, including a problem with my right eye, which is still a bit wonky. I'm not back to writing yet, not romance anyway. I hope to get back to that sometime, but I have been working very hard on a lot of other things. I know that some of you are trying to work from home, possibly for the first time. You may be doing your usual job remotely, you may be trying something new, you may be at loose ends and trying to figure out what you should do next. I've heard people saying that they're concerned about how to work without the structure and the support of their usual workplace. I spent about 15 years working in an office environment, so I know what that's like. But for almost 2 decades now, I've been working from home. So I've learned a lot of things about that, and I thought I'd share some of them. First, let me say that friends have praised me for being disciplined enough to work at home. I have sometimes pushed myself very hard, sometimes too hard, but what has really helped in the long run is to become a good manager to myself. A good manager understands their employees and cares about them. So I'm going to give you 10 suggestions that might help you work at home. Feel free to use whatever works and ignore the rest. I'm sure there's lots of advice out there right now, and go check that out. The way you'll know that something is right for you is how you feel. If it makes you feel happy and motivated, then it's a good thing to try. And a word for those of you who don't like your jobs, and I totally get that. You may be thinking, why should I even try to get happy or motivated? You may be buying into a situation in our culture that we think that it's virtuous to suffer and make sacrifices for your work. And I think that a lot of the time work is not pleasant because of that kind of an attitude that we don't always have the right priorities. I remember a nun in grade school telling me that if something were fun and easy, we would call it play. I disagree with that. I believe that work is the act of creating something or providing a service. So if you make something or you provide a service, you are working. And that doesn't really depend on how pleasant or how difficult it was. Why not make it as pleasant as possible? So while I enjoy a lot of what I do, there are things that I don't enjoy, and some are just really, really hard. And I need to do them too. So I found that with those tasks, it's even more important to nurture myself and reward myself for doing them. Those of you who, see work as a drudgery and unpleasant, this kind of an approach might help you get through until hopefully you can find work that is more enjoyable and motivating for you. So, on to the first tip. I am using notes, but I'm trying not to just read from them. I'm trying to make sure that I don't just babble. So let me get to my first point. Suggestion number 1 is take very good care of yourself. This one seems obvious and trite. Everybody says it, but it's important and not everybody does it. So get plenty of sleep. You may be someone who's always run a little bit short. I used to do that, especially when my daughters were small. But I found my brain just works way, way better if I get 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep. This might be a good time to listen to your body and give it the sleep it needs. Same for food. Do your best to eat healthy and tasty food and the amount your body needs, because if you're getting anxious or depressed or you're losing focus, you could end up eating not enough or too much. I've done both in the past, so here again, pay attention to your body and nurture it. Give it what it needs. I know it can be hard to exercise, but it's important. Exercise improves blood flow to your brain. Exercise, especially rhythmic exercise, helps to soothe anxiety and stimulate your creativity. With the YMCA closed, I'm missing my morning lap swims, which was my favorite thing to do. But I'm lucky I can get out and walk and do some gardening. If I couldn't get out, I'd be looking up dance videos. I'm a terrible dancer, but who cares? It's fun and it's good. So I hope you can find something that works for you. It's also very, very important to do some kind of stretching or yoga or body scans or anything that will get you in touch with your body and how it's feeling. I wake up every morning just not wanting to move because, I've got some aches and pains and some stiffness. And I find that doing a stretching and yoga routine, it's based on Full Catastrophe Living by John Kabat-Zinn, who developed the program of mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. You can look it up if you want. That helps me a lot. And if I get stressed through the day, sometimes I stop and do some stretching and pay attention to what's going on, because the clear sign for me that I'm stressed out is if my shoulders have kind of risen up to somewhere around my ears. And so, taking some deep breaths and lowering them and, kind of letting some peace flow through my body helps to keep it from getting a lot worse. And the other important thing is the stress may show up for you somewhere in your body, and it's telling you something, that you might have to deal with something. You might have some difficult emotions that you have to work through, and ignoring them and trying to power through is a short-term strategy, but it doesn't really work in the long run. So at some point you need to take care of that as well. So if you don't already have some kind of mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness program, this might be a good time to look for something that'll work for you. It doesn't matter what religion you practice or none at all. It is very helpful to connect with a sense of awe, a sense of peace, a sense of connection, the knowledge that we're all part of something bigger. And that helps enormously. So you can try journaling or meditation or prayer or art or music. Anything that helps you stay grounded and peaceful is going to help you. If you're struggling with things, I hope you can find some kind of resources for maybe phone or online counseling that can help you. Just to wrap up the suggestion, there have been times when I've powered through to get something done at the cost of my health. It's generally not a good idea. But sometimes you have to power through because you're in some kind of a crisis. And if you do that, then please, at least promise yourself that once the crisis is over, you're going to take a break and you're going to get back to excellent self-care. The work matters, but so do you. Okay, that was a long one, but it's a very, very important one, and it's a lot of things that people say but don't always do. So try to make a plan to do it also. Suggestion number 2, communicate and cooperate with the people you live with. So yeah, some of us are now trying to inhabit homes with, possibly children who are studying and other people who are working. And so we're trying to find new ways of working together. About 2 years ago, I downsized to a smaller house, and I didn't plan on having both my daughters home with me for more than college breaks. So now the 3 of us are living together, and we all need to study and work and get things done in a smaller space. Closing doors isn't a good option because we have our very dear little cat, Mr. Darcy, and we like having him around when we're working, and if he's behind a closed door, sometimes he'll meow until he's let in anyway. So we like to keep the doors cracked, and we need ways to signal to each other that, we want to be left alone to do work. So we actually spent an afternoon with cardboard and gardening catalogs and glue sticks, and we made ourselves doorknob hangers as signals to say that we need some time and space to ourselves. And so far that's been working. So if you're living with other people and you have to now somehow find a way to make your home function for that, you might want to do something similar. Don't expect people to guess what you need. It's better to ask and negotiate solutions. And if you keep the atmosphere in your home as happy and peaceful as possible, that'll make everything go better. My daughters are very caring and thoughtful young adults. So this wasn't a very difficult process for us. There are some situations where this might be more challenging, and I get that. The first more challenging situation I can think of is if you're trying to work at home while taking care of younger children or, possibly elderly adults or people with disabilities or whatever who are depending on you. So now you might be finding that you're trying to do caregiving and do your work all in that space, and I'm sure that's a big challenge, and my heart goes out to you. Some of the things that I remember from when my girls were small and from other experiences I've had is that it's important to show everybody in the house that what they're doing is important. So even if your children are not earning money, the things that they're doing are very important to them. So you want to show them that you enjoy doing work and your work is important, and you want to model that for them and let them know that their activities are important too. So to whatever degree you can, based on their age and their, cognitive abilities, talk to the people you're taking care of and ask them what they need from you and tell them what you need from them, whatever you can reasonably ask of them. I found sometimes that it was possible for my children to be doing their work while I was writing. So they would create and illustrate stories in crayon, and one of my favorites was featuring the whole family as mermaids with seashell bras. So that still makes me smile. So there are times when it works beautifully, and then there are times when it all falls apart. If we were living in a more enlightened society, I think, management and coworkers and everybody in general would understand that we have to balance these priorities. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But our relationships with our loved ones are more important than anything else we're doing, in my opinion. So even though I would like to see a society that recognized that taking care of people is a sacred task, even if it doesn't, it helps to try to find that balance that works for you and your family, regardless of what other people think. And you may want to connect with other parents or caregivers who are dealing with these situations, because they have very likely some more tips and tricks, and at least, give each other some mutual support. The second more challenging situation I can think of is if you live with someone who, based on their age and health, should be able to respect your boundaries, but instead seems to want to sabotage you. If your attempts to communicate and cooperate break down, you may be dealing with someone who has some serious issues and possibly a personality disorder. Maintaining boundaries is going to be a lot harder, but it's still important. Best short piece of advice I can give to you is go to the Out of the Fog website. You can just Google Out of the Fog, and they have a lot of useful information there. And you might also want to see if you can get some help from a counselor or therapist who understands personality disorders and toxic behaviors, because that's going to be important that you get some support in getting through. So here we go. Number 3. Make your space work for you. You might already have a home office. If you don't, you'll have to figure out if there's a specific space in your home that you can designate and set up for work, or if you have to make some spot in your home a multi-purpose space. So you're going to have to work there sometimes, and sometimes you'll be doing other things. This is something you might want to discuss if you have one of those family meetings that I mentioned earlier. Conventional wisdom says you shouldn't work in your bedroom, and there are good reasons for that. Doing work in the bedroom could interfere with sleep or relaxation or intimacy. But I buck that trend, actually, because I actually like to do work in my bedroom sometimes, some types of work. I really love my bedroom. It's the first room I decorated after moving to this new house, and I feel like a queen there. I love to do planning, and I love to do creative brainstorming, so those are things that I will do in the bedroom, and it's never been a problem for me. There are other types of work I will not do in the bedroom, things like taxes or financial aid paperwork. No. I'm not saying that you need to work in your bedroom. I'm just saying, think about it. Think about what works best for you and not necessarily what works best for others. Wherever I work, I try to make sure that it's neat. If it's in the bedroom, the bed is made and the clothes are put away. Same thing as much as possible for other spaces. There's a lot of stuff out there on the internet, memes and jokes, and say that a clean house is evidence of a sick mind and that messy people are more creative and all of that. If you find that a busy environment is energizing to you, then fine, do what works for you. But I found, and I think it's probably true for a lot of people, that a cluttered environment is paralyzing. I have struggled with anxiety and depression, and those are well managed at this point. I also think that I'm probably somewhere on the autistic spectrum. So I find clutter very distracting and kind of anxiety provoking, and that doesn't make it easy to work. And also things that are not well maintained, broken or dusty or whatever, can trigger the depression. So I try to keep things reasonably clean. I'm not a perfectionist at all. And I'm working on areas of clutter in my house. Having moved, there are still some things that are, some areas that are kind of chaotic, and it feels really good to get them straightened out. So if your environment isn't working for you, you might want to spend some time doing that. Also think about just making sure that there are things in your space that inspire you and make you smile. Favorite colors and patterns, objects that spark joy. If you've ever watched The Organizing Expert, Marie Kondo, that's what she says. Does something spark joy? So you want to have some things around you that spark joy. I have beautiful art. I have some nice little rounded stones that I picked up on a beach once with a friend, and I like to hold them. They just feel nice in my hand. If I'm sitting there brainstorming or trying to solve a problem, sometimes I'll just hold one. Do whatever you like, and you can get a little weird. You can just have pictures of your loved ones and a plant like you would in a conventional office setting, but you can have other things there too. A word on multi-purpose spaces. Look for ways to transition. I don't have a big desk. My big desk that I had in the old house did not fit in the new house, so I do a lot of work on the dining room table. And I also really love entertaining, and well, of course now I'm not entertaining, but my daughters and I will still eat there. And I feel like that has to be family time and social time. So what I do is I clear off the laptop and paperwork and all of that and set the table, and that helps to transition. And then after the meal is done, everything has to get put away. I'm not going to sit there and work around dirty dishes because, again, that's distracting and unpleasant, and it just doesn't work. You need to be able to transition. There are other ways to signal a transition. Further on, I'm going to talk about rituals. You can do things with candles, with lighting, with scents, with music. And like I said, I'll talk more about that later. But setting up a space that helps you work can be very, very helpful in my experience. So on to suggestion number 4. Dress for success, whatever that means to you. You might have to dress specific ways if you're doing video conferencing, but for many of us, working at home means that you can dress however you want. I have some writer friends who are very happy about being able to work in their pajamas, and if that works for you, that's fine. That's something that doesn't work for me. I need to know that there's some kind of a transition from relaxing time to functional time. So I will always shower and get dressed. I like to do yoga and meditation sometimes throughout the day. So, I tend to wear, yoga pants and sweatpants and things like that. But I do try to put on a nice top, a pretty color, maybe even jewelry. Sometimes that, that makes me feel good, even if it's just me and the cat, it puts me in the mental state of, now I'm going to be productive. You can have fun with this, wear what feels good. You want to wear a superhero cape? Go for it. If the idea of wearing a tiara while you're working makes you happy, then go ahead and do it. You might want to take it off for video conferencing, or maybe not. All right, so now I'm going to go to suggestion number 5. This is a very, very important one. Make a schedule and show up. If whatever you're doing at home does not have external requirements, like you have to be online or available on the phone at certain times, you might be at risk of overworking or losing focus and not getting much done. I know I've observed people, and I had this myself, is that if you think that you have the whole day to get things done and you don't set up a schedule, you might find that the day is slipping by and suddenly you haven't gotten anything done. And if you are at all prone to anxiety and depression, this will make the anxiety and depression worse, and then you'll start getting into a spiral, and that's a very difficult spiral to get out of. So make a schedule and show up. So if you miss your workplace and you're looking forward to going back, you could stay on the same schedule that you did at your usual workplace. If you like, this could be a time to find out what works better for you. Are you an early bird or a night owl? Many writers are. Creative people often like to work at times when it's very quiet, and that's fine. Sometimes I know creative people will take a break in the middle of the day to do other kinds of things and then get back to their work later. So you can find out what works for you. Like morning is my best time, so I do the hardest things in the morning. And you think about a schedule for breaks. Right now, the way my eyes are, I have to rest them for about 15 minutes every 2 hours, so that's my forced break. I go ahead and meditate and stretch and do things like that then. And, sometimes ideas come to me while I'm taking that eye break anyway. But it works for me. So find something that works for you, because if your job used to involve moving around because you went to meetings or whatever, and now you're not moving around, build something in to give yourself a break and move around. So this is kind of magical. When you're working at home, you have the power to adapt the schedule to suit yourself. You are a precious, unique individual. You can find what works for you. So create your schedule and do whatever it helps to show up. You can post your schedule, you can set up reminders on your phone, whatever works, but show up. It'll feel good. And on to suggestion number 6. Plan your day. This might sound like the same as the scheduling, but you don't always know what kind of tasks you're going to be doing if you're doing a job that you're not actually doing the same thing every day. So, in a traditional workplace, you might have other people who are dictating and monitoring your priorities and making sure that you get the things done, even if you don't want to get certain things done. When you're working at home, especially if you're self-employed like me, you have to find ways to get things done, even the things that you don't enjoy. I enjoy probably 80% of what I do, but the remaining 20% is important too, so I've had to find ways to get myself to do those things. So I'm going to backtrack a little. Back in 2002, I did a program called The Artist's Way, which is described in a book of the same name by Julia Cameron. And one of the main ongoing components of The Artist's Way is the morning pages. You do 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing every morning to clear out whatever blocks there are, and get you ready for the day. So I regularly do morning pages, and I do the stream of consciousness stuff to just get whatever needs to come out. But I also use the morning pages to prepare for the day. So if I'm feeling resistance to doing a task, I will go ahead and do an unblocking exercise, which was also developed by Julia Cameron, and it involves journaling about why you don't want to do a task. So you list what are your resentments, what anger you feel towards doing the task, any fear that you have related to the task. And just the process of writing all that down helps you to identify why you didn't want to do it. And then sometimes that'll bring you solutions. You might realize why it was important. You might realize that the task isn't that important. You might find a better way to do it, whatever. But I've always found that it helps. So anyway, plan your day, and then, think about your rhythms again. If you have something that's difficult to do you need to do something easy to kind of ease into it? Do you want to jump right into it? And then maybe you want to plan something easy to do afterwards, or pleasant, or make sure that you take a break, because if you reward yourself, then you'll do the hard thing again next time. At least I found that to work for me. Number 7, use rituals to help you start and end work sessions. This is similar to adapting the space to work for you, or it's related to adapting your space. Many writers, including myself, have rituals for starting their work. Some of it is just things like getting coffee. Some people will light a candle or do a brief meditation, turn on music, or even pray. Whether or not you practice a religion, you can use a form of prayer, or you can even call it something else if that's what you're more comfortable with, to help you get started. You can simply say something like, "May I be productive today," or "May I be patient with my clients today," or "May I be creative today." Whatever it is that suits you and is applicable to whatever you're trying to do. I find that it really helps to set that intention. And the harder the task I'm trying to do, the more it helps me to use a ritual to get started. You might also want to try a ritual to end your session. You can reverse whatever you did to start. If you had a little prayer or a wish for something that you stated before you started, then you can also be grateful for whatever happened that worked. Even if you did something wrong, at least now you know that there's a way to change it for the next time. And once you've done that, you can extinguish the candle, you can turn off or change the music, whatever it is that you did. Change the environment so that you can transition on to whatever it is that you plan to do next. So you can rest or, be with your family or whatever you need to do. So, suggestion number 8, recognize accomplishments, problem solve for difficulties. I've been starting to journal a little bit more in the evening. This is a time when many people do gratitude journals. So that's one of the things that I do if I journal in the evening, is I note that the things that went well and people who helped me and good things that just seem to come my way. So I want to think about those things. But I also will sometimes go ahead and journal about mistakes that I've made or issues that rose. Days that I didn't get everything done that I wanted to get done. And I found that it's very important that this be observation and not judgment. It's just an understanding and a recognition of what happened, but, no self-flagellation. I try to make my self-talk kind and encouraging. And what I'll do is I'll work on releasing resistance to the problems that showed up. Sometimes if I write about a decision that I need to make or a question that I have or a problem I'm trying to solve, writing it down can help. It can help me let go of it and sleep. And then I often find that the next morning I'll wake up with some idea or even a full solution in mind. There's a lot behind that phrase, sleep on it. And I also know some people who use a God box and they decorate some kind of a box and then they put questions and prayers in the evening and they hope for answers in the morning, and sometimes they get them. It's the same dynamic. You're just working with an energy. You put out the question and sometimes the answers come, and not right away though. So, it helps sometimes to let it go and then see what happens. Suggestion number 9, connect with care. A lot of us need to connect for work purposes, and that could be phone calls or emails or video conferencing. We might be going on social media to connect with friends and family and, find people who are dealing with the same issues that we are, to get mutual support and advice and tips. And most of us also want to know enough about the news to take the right actions for ourselves and the people we care about. So we want to stay reasonably well informed. But there's a lot of pitfalls, as you all know, of going out to social media, reading the news, connecting with people. When you're working from home, this can be a source of distraction. You can get pulled in a lot of different directions and forget what you were intending to do. If you're trying to avoid a task, you might try numbing out and you just mindlessly scroll through social media and try to avoid whatever it is that you didn't want to be doing. Or you can get caught up and obsessed with the news cycle because, many of us care so deeply about what's going on that we become obsessed, and then that can lead to anxiety and depression. And, we all know that doesn't really help. So I would suggest, and this is pretty conventional wisdom, but it's still important, is setting some guidelines that work for you. And they could be very unique and very special to you. You have to know which media and which types of things are the ones that cause you trouble and when they're likely to cause you trouble. Is it in the evening when you're tired, then you start sort of falling apart a little? Maybe you need a different kind of a self-soothing, activity for the evening. One of my daughters moved one of her social media apps off the main screen of her phone so that she has to work harder to get there, and then it gives her a chance to think about whether she actually wants to go there or not. One of my personal mental health rules is that I don't let the outside world in until I've gone through my wellness program in the morning, that I've gone ahead and journaled and meditated, and I'm ready to face things. And then I tend to shut out the outside world after dinner. And I found that that really helps me to sleep, because if I pay attention to the news in the evening and I see something that upsets me, I'm not going to sleep, and there's really nothing I can do about it at that point anyway. So why don't I sleep, wait till I'm rested, and then I'll deal with things and see if there's something that I can do about whatever's happening, the next morning. So try to manage your use of social media. Don't let it manage you. Suggestion number 10, this is also a really, really important one. I'm going to wrap up with this one. Allow yourself to be human. If you're working at home for the first time, you're trying something new and you're going to make mistakes. Don't beat yourself up. I've tried it. It doesn't help. Focus on observing what you're doing rather than judging, and then problem solve. Do you need something to help you stay on track? Do you need to keep better to-do lists? Do you need a whiteboard? What do you need? Do you need to change your space? Do you need to adjust your schedule? Do you need to talk to your family or whoever you're living with about things? Do you need to just take some time to, take some deep breaths and focus? Please do not beat yourself up on days when you don't accomplish all of your work goals. Please be patient with yourself and with others. Give yourself lots of praise for balancing everything as wisely as you possibly could. And it's getting a little cold out here, so it's getting hard to flip the pages. But I was smart enough to staple everything together because it's a little breezy out here and I don't want things going into the river. So anyway, in conclusion, I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope that the world situation gets easier. I believe that things will not really go back to the way they were, and we'll have some grieving and healing to do. But I think we'll all have learned something. I certainly hope so. We are going to create a new normal. What do we want that to look like? That's something to think about. So please like and share if you found this helpful, and let me know what you think. Thank you so much for listening, and please take very good care of yourselves. Bye-bye.